interim deal over the Iran war. U.S. President Donald Trump signed it in Versailles in France, seated alongside French President Emmanuel Macron at a formal dinner. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the state-run IRNA news agency showed pictures of Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian signing the deal, stone-faced, and later holding it up to a camera with it bearing both his signature and that of Trump's. Now, this deal appears to call for the immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which about a fifth of all oil and natural gas passed before the Iran war began back in February. It also sets in motion a 60-day window for the two countries to negotiate over Iran's nuclear program. This was one of the reasons that Trump, Israel, and others cited for launching the war on Iran. It remains unclear just exactly how they'll bridge the gaps over this. One part of this deal calls for the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, which is a UN agency that is the nuclear watchdog for that world body, to monitor the downblending of the highly enriched uranium in Iran that would see it go from levels that are very close to weapons grade down to negligible purity. Now, Iran, for its part, has been insisting that it would hold on to its nuclear stockpile. President Trump had said that he wanted to see that stockpile removed, so it remains unclear how they're going to bridge that gap. There's also questions about Iran's nuclear centrifuges and other parts of the program, which remain destroyed after the war and after U.S. bombings that happened last year. All this together just shows how tentative still this peace deal is. It does offer a lot of concessions for Iran, however, including the possibility of a $300 billion fund to help rebuild Iran after the war, should it follow through on its commitments. Meanwhile, there's also questions over whether or not Iran would charge ships for going through the Strait of Hormuz. There's only a narrow window in this accord for ships to move out without being charged.
All right, folks, as you hear, we have a deal, or at least it looks like we have the framework of a deal. I was looking at Al Arabia, which is the state-owned news channel out of Saudi Arabia, about the agreement between the White House and Tehran. Also, big shout out to Occupy Democrats, who did a great job of summarizing this as well. The points of the memorandum of understanding, the tentative agreement that they made, really makes it out to look that like Donald Trump really got bent over a barrel by the Iranians. And a lot of us have been saying that really, he really didn't have much of a choice. There's a reason that Joe Biden, that Barack Obama, that George W. Bush, that Bill Clinton, dude, Israel tried to blackmail Bill Clinton with Monica Lewinsky pictures back in the 90s to get him to do what Donald Trump did, which is attack Iran and go to war with Iran. They have been trying for decades. They have tried every modern president and said, hey, you want to attack Iran for us? And they go, hell no. Are you crazy? Bill Clinton was like, yeah, you know what? Y'all just gonna have to release the Lewinsky stuff for me. I am not stupid enough to go to war with Iran. But they found the one guy who is either so stupid or compromised. If you've been watching a lot of our Epstein coverage here at Straight Out of the Cannon, he was either stupid or compromised or some combination of both, where they either blackmailed him or bamboozled him in order to be able to get him to do what he's done, which is start a war with a country of 90 million people. And so it was pretty obvious that Donald Trump was going to have to make some serious concessions. And according to these points that we've gotten, that's exactly what happened. Iran, the United States, and their allies declare upon signing that there will be an immediate and permanent end to the war on all fronts, including Lebanon. We already see Israel is trying to restart the war by bombing Lebanon as we speak. Israel is doing their best to try to you know, reignite this because, again, they don't want peace under any circumstances. They vow not to launch any hostile acts against each other and will refrain from the threat or use of force against each other. Also, so that means that Donald Trump is not going to be able to go on, you know, one of his social media accounts and start threatening to wipe Iran off the planet like he regularly does. That's in the memorandum of understanding. Number 2, the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. I told you months ago that the United States government and Israel were trying to overthrow Iran's government with those supposed protests that they were having at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. Now even Donald Trump admits that they were sending weapons to the Kurds and trying to give weapons to people to overthrow Iran's government. So no more of that from our government. Number 3, the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States undertake to negotiate and reach a final agreement within a maximum period of 60 days, extendable by mutual consent. So for now, the Strait of Hormuz is open without any tolls or anything, you know, but in 60 days, that may not be the case. The U.S. will lift its naval blockade and prevent any interference or obstruction against Iran. Traffic through the region will be restored within 30 days to full capacity and pre-war volume of traffic on the part of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The U.S. agrees to withdraw its military forces from the surrounding region within 30 days of the final agreement, which still has to be written and ratified. That is huge. The United States has close to 1,000 military bases around the world. We have been surrounding not just Iran, but Russia and everybody else, China and anybody else that we viewed as a competitor for decades now. The idea that Iran cost so much for the United States that the United States literally had to agree to start drawing back in the Gulf region, that's a giant, that's a giant sign right there that the United States is no longer the sort of juggernaut militarily that we used to be, or at least the rest of the world doesn't see us that way and doesn't fear us the way that they used to anymore. 5, Iran agrees to immediately take steps to ensure that the movement of merchant ships from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa is resumed within 30 days to a pre-war volume, taking into account the need for the removal of technical obstacle and neutralization of mines by Iran. Iran put all kinds of booby traps out there. That was one of the reasons why none of the boats could get through the Strait of Hormuz, was because Iran was literally booby trapping it. And so now they've, figured out, look, we got to, take the booby traps out so that they're not just blowing up random ships and things like that. But what's important is that Iran still has control of the Strait of Hormuz. After all that, the U.S. and its allies will create a comprehensive plan for the rehabilitation and the economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It must amount to at least, listen to this, $300 billion. Yes.
Money, money, money.
Yes. Money, money, money. Now remember, the Republicans were going out of their minds because Barack Obama had to pay the Iranians when he instituted they agreed on the JCPOA agreement back in, I want to say, 2014. Obama gave them unfroze $2 billion for the Iranians, and the Republicans just had a hissy fit. Now the Trump administration is literally going to have to pay them $300 billion. The U.S. agrees. Now this is really incredible right here. The U.S. agrees to end all types of sanctions on Iran. Wow. Including those implemented by the UN Security Council, the International Atomic Energy Agency, as well as all unilateral U.S. sanctions, both primary and secondary. Wow, sanctions is how the United States controls the world, because the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. We've been using the petrodollar. You can't buy oil. You couldn't buy oil in anything but U.S. dollars for a long time. So when we were mad at you, if you were Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, Zimbabwe, whatever, we could say, sanctions. We're going to ruin your country. That's what we did to Venezuela for all those years. That's what we done to Cuba for many years. That's what we done to many countries. And so the whole point of those sanctions was to weaken Iran's government by affecting their ability to feed their people and provide things like medicine. The countries we sanction have problems getting AIDS medications to their AIDS patients and all kinds of other medical treatments to their patients because, we basically have control over those types of things. Now they're saying, hey, no more sanctions. That is crazy. That is crazy. Because the whole point of sanctions is to make life so terrible for the average person in these countries that the United States is sanctioning that then they want to go and overthrow their government. That was the whole point, was to make the Iranian people want to kill the Ayatollahs and overthrow and put our puppets in. And so now, without sanctions, the Iranian administration, their government, can basically go back to just feeding its people and being a normal country. I mean, this provision, more than anything else, I think is going to ensure that Iran is going to be a global power in the near future. They're going to control the Strait of Hormuz and not have any sanctions? Good God. Okay, the Islamic Republic of Iran reiterates that it will never produce nuclear weapons. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States have agreed that the fate of the enriched material and the fate of all other mutually agreed nuclear-related issues, including Iran's nuclear needs, will be adequately addressed in the final agreement. The final agreement will confirm the provisions of this article, while Trump will try to claim 8.8 as a victory. The use of the words reiterates here is crucial. Now, why is that? Because Iran always believed that nuclear weapons were sinful. That's what the Ayatollah that we just killed, that was his belief. There were hardliners within Iran's government who wanted nuclear weapons for protection. That's the reason why we just don't haul off and bomb Russia, or we just don't haul off and bomb North Korea, because they have the nukes. The people who actually have nukes, we don't mess with them. Kim Jong-un knows that. The Iranians knew that. And so there were always people in Iran's government that kind of like, you know what, Ayatollah, we kind of need some nukes. But the Ayatollah was Ayatollah Khamenei was very adamant about not creating nuclear weapons. They believe it is sinful and wrong. And I agree. I'm not even a Muslim, and I agree with them. And as somebody from the only country that's ever used nuclear weapons and has seen what Hiroshima and Nagasaki looked like, I still contend that everybody involved with that should have been at The Hague and hung. Harry Truman, all of them. Now, that being said, this is not really a huge victory for Trump and his allies, as they will try to make it out to seem, because Iran as a country, its leadership, the people who are actually running things, never wanted nuclear weapons. And I don't think anybody should have any either. We should be trying to denuclearize, not, renuclearize. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States agree that pending a final agreement, they will maintain the status quo. Iran will maintain the status quo on its nuclear program, and the United States will not impose new sanctions on Iran or strengthen its forces in the region. So what this basically makes the entire thing pointless for the United States. This whole conflict that Donald Trump got us into because either Israel blackmailed him or because they just bamboozled him one way or the other, what did you accomplish? They control the Strait of Hormuz. Whatever sanctions you had on them, you got to take them off now. And you can't put any new ones on them, and you got to retreat. The military's got to retreat on some level. Number 10, the United States agrees to immediately issue waivers for exports of Iranian crude oil, petrochemical products, and their derivatives, and all related services, including banking, insurance, transportation, and the like. Those waivers will no longer be required once sanctions are lifted in full. Man, Iran's about to get paid. They're about to get pizzade, okay? If I had to like buy stock in a country right now, I think Iran might be it. Number 11, the U.S. agrees to frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran so long as negotiations progress towards a final agreement. Those funds will fully be available for use by Iran. So yeah, we had stolen their money, and now we got to give it back. So again, what did this whole thing accomplish? Not a damn thing. Number 12, the U.S. and Iran agree that an implementation mechanism will be established to oversee the successful implementation and future commitment to the final agreement. The final agreement will be approved through a binding resolution of the UN Security Council. So here's what you know, what you really want to know, okay? Because ultimately all of this came because Barack Obama, in Donald Trump's mind, his jealous, festering mind, did something that he couldn't do. Which was make a deal with Iran. Remember, Donald Trump is extremely jealous of Barack Obama, always has been. And you guys, if you listen to the show, you know I am not the biggest Obama fan either. I am no fan of any of our recent presidents. I think they're all a part of the same military-industrial complex, prison-industrial complex, Wall Street system. But one thing that is sure is that Donald Trump is insanely jealous and envious of Barack Obama, has been for many years, and tearing up the JCPOA, the agreement that Iran and Obama made in 2014 was a huge part of that. So let's just look at the differences, right? Let's look at what Barack Obama JCPOA agreement accomplished versus what Donald Trump's memorandum of understanding looks to be trying to accomplish, right? In unfrozen assets, Barack Obama unfroze $1.7 billion of Iran's assets. And the Republicans had a crap fit. A crap fit. Oh my God, he's giving them back their money. Oh my God. Donald Trump has got to unfreeze $25 billion. $25 billion. Yes.
Money, money, money.
Money, money, money. Okay. In terms of Iran's uranium stockpile, the JCPOA under Obama called for a 98% reduction. Whereas in Trump's and Iran's agreement, there is no agreement. They're just going to let it ride. Also, with the Iran's enrichment program, nuclear enrichment program, the JCPOA capped it at 3%. Again, Trump, no agreement. Just letting it ride. In terms of Iran sanctions, Barack Obama's JCPOA kept Iran sanctions in place, whereas Trump has had to lift them. The Strait of Hormuz was open without conditions. under the JCPOA and Barack Obama. With Trump, the first 60 days are free and clear, but after 60 days, Iran and Oman have full control and can implement tolls if they want. No Americans died for Barack Obama to accomplish the JCPOA. 15 Americans have died for what? Can anybody tell me what these people died for? The 15 Americans? There were no Americans injured to accomplish the JCPOA. There's been over 500 Americans injured to accomplish this MOU, or this framework of a deal that Trump has with Iran. There was no direct cost of the deal for Obama's JCPOA. There was $100 billion direct cost of the deal in terms of going to war. In this situation, there was zero global financial cost for Obama to accomplish the JCPOA. $2.2 trillion have been lost since early March from the world's economy, thanks to this errant war that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have started. There was zero effect on American wages thanks to Obama's JCPOA, whereas just since March, since late February, early March, when this war started, the average American has lost a year and a half worth of wages. After the JCPOA, America's weapons stockpile was completely replenished, whereas under Trump, between stretching us thin with Ukraine, Israel, Iran now, it's all gone. That's a big part of the reason why they had to come to an agreement as well. So here we go. This is where we're at. Virtually everybody who saw this coming knew that this was going to be the most disastrous foreign policy mistake that any American president would ever make. And we were all right. We were all correct. Only person who didn't see it was the one person who mattered. Well, all right, folks. We got to go to a break. It's already 6:40. Yes, it is. So please stay with us here on WLTH 1370 AM. We're going to get into the world's richest man in history and how he got there. Please stay with us.